In this video, I'm going to talk to you about lifecycle management of your data that's stored on S3. Now at this point, we've created some buckets. So here we are in our Amazon Web Services console. I'm going to go to S3, and you can see a couple of buckets that I've already created here. And on these buckets, I've actually enabled versioning and cross-region replication. So here we see my two buckets. I'm going to go to the trainer tests bucket and click on properties. And again, on this bucket, you can see we've got versioning enabled. We've got cross-region replication enabled as well. And when we enable these tools, we start to consume more and more space, and our solution gets more and more expensive. So we might have a lot of files here, and we're not going to want to manually go in and delete older versions. So we can establish some lifecycle rules. So let's go ahead and click on Lifecycle for the trainer tests bucket. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Rule. And I'm going to apply my rule to the whole bucket. If I wanted to, I could target an individual folder, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to create a lifecycle rule for my entire bucket. I'll click on Configure Rule. And here we see all of the options that we have available. So let's walk through our different options here. We can transition to the standard infrequent access storage class, which is less expensive. Right? So if we're not frequently utilizing this data, but we want fast access to it when we do need it, we can say after 30 days, when an object gets created, it's automatically moved to this lower cost storage class. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And we can also archive items to Glacier. So Glacier is slower, right? It's going to take longer to access these objects. But if I want to, let's say after 90 days, automatically migrate objects over to the Glacier storage class to save some money, I can do that. And it'll give you a little flow chart here showing you, okay, you create an object on day 0. It's uploaded. After 90 days, the rule kicks in, and it moves that object to Glacier. Again, I'm going to uncheck this option for now. And let's take a look at the expire option. It's by default set to 365 days, a full year. And after a full year, what's going to happen is your object's going to be created, a year will go by, and then the expire rule will kick in, and a delete marker will be created for that object. Now, at that point, the object isn't gone, right? The object isn't gone. It's just marked as deleted, but it's still there. You're not going to see it, but it's still there. But at that point, we haven't really done anything that can't be relatively easily undone. Now, if we scroll down a little bit further, we can see some other actions on previous versions. So, for example, if we have a file and then we upload a new version of that file, what do we want to have happen to those previous versions, right? Maybe the new version is going to be frequently accessed, but the old versions are going to be infrequently accessed. So let's move those old versions to the infrequent access storage class, or let's move them to Glacier, where they're going to be much, much slower if we need to get them, but they're just backups anyways. So why keep them on high performance storage? Maybe after 30 days, a file, the previous versions, will move to Glacier. Or we could even create a rule that says for previous versions of files, after a certain amount of time, I just want to delete them. I want them gone eventually. And we can set that time span here. So here's the way it's going to work right now. If I take a file and upload a new version of it, that previous version will be placed in Glacier after 30 days, and then I'll start saving some money. After another additional 365 days, so a total of 395 days, that object will be permanently deleted. And this is why it's important to understand that we can create these lifecycle rules either on folders or on entire buckets, right? So you might have a bucket and many folders within that bucket, and the different folders might be different retention policies. So for example, you might have one bucket where everything gets just permanently deleted after 365 days if it's a previous version. You might have other files that you need to keep longer than that for compliance purposes. And so maybe we go 730 days on some files that we need to maintain for 2 years. So these are the different lifecycle rules that you can create so that you don't have to manually go in there and clean up these objects that are older versions of objects. And if you want to, we can automatically expire objects after a certain time period. So if a file sits out there for 5 years or whatever time span we want to identify right here, it can be marked with the delete marker and maybe eventually actually be deleted or moved to Glacier or something along those lines. So I'm going to stick with the policies that I've created here. Go ahead and hit review. And at this point, I can create a rule name. I'm just going to call it training. Right now, I can see my rule is targeted at trainer tests, and I can see a little summary of the rule that I've created here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this to create and activate my rule. And now under Lifecycle, I can see this new rule that I've created.